Welcome back to the show. Check out these headlines. You're going to love it. First ever Treasury company created by a Ripple board member. You're going to love it. XRP supply shock incoming. We're asking the question. And are we going to see a repeat of XRP 2017 11,000 plus percent gains? I don't know the answer, but let's take a look and see if we can find out.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You could follow us on X, YouTube, DigPerspectives.com. Right here, we have $3.85 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency. The market is up 1.8% in the last 24. Right now, Bitcoin's holding 110,700 plus, Ethereum holding 4,000 plus. Number 5 spots, XRP at $2.46. We're up 3% on the 24, but we're off 4.6 on the 7-day. The range of price very quickly between 237 and 249. Now, TA from Eggrad Crypto in our first video suggests we don't want to close on any time frame below 231. We'll look at some different TA on this video as well, but let's get started here. It's unfortunate we had a community member in XRP community lose over $3 million worth of XRP due to a hack. And shout out to that gentleman, his wife and family. This is absolutely painful. It's hard to hear this happen to anyone, and it was unfortunate. He had a Ellie Pal hot wallet, but he thought he was on cold wallet. And you guys, you know, there's a difference there, right? Hot wallets are connected to the internet, where a cold wallet, such as hardware devices, are fully offline. And it is very tricky in this space to know all the different things you need to know, obviously. But this is a horrible thing that's happened to him. If anybody knows anything about trying to track down lost crypto, stolen crypto, please reach out to ABLAROQUE, right? Brandon LaRoque. And shout out to you, Brandon, in his video announcing that this happened. He gave DAI and myself a shout out because we talk about institutional custody all the time. And I really wish Brandon was in that situation, but he obviously something bad has happened here. Brandon, my heart breaks for you and your family. Don't stop fighting, Brandon. Don't stop fighting to recover your assets, and don't stop fighting accumulating. I know you're up against it. You feel up against it, but you can win in this in the end. You can just keep going, right? I mean, and if anybody can help him, please reach out to him. There's no question about it. But this is, in fact, as Brandon has said in his own video, why we talk about institutional grade custody and the importance of it. Now, you can obviously do a crypto IRA at iTrustCapital because they have the best crypto IRAs for crypto and gold and silver on the planet. It's not even up for discussion. And they have institutional grade custody for that because that's a part of an IRA. And you know what? As an extension to their service that they offer, they've introduced a premium custody account, which is what we talk about a lot here. And that is the ability to put your crypto in cash in a premium custody account. It's not an IRA, and allows you as a long-term holder to hold your assets in there safely and get the same institutional grade custody that you would in your IRA. And if, God forbid, you were hacked like Brandon was on his side of the equation, the worst thing that could have happened was his assets would have been cashed out and sent to his US checking account, because that's what's so special about the PCA. The PCA is special because you can only cash out to cash, and it can only go to your US checking account. So God forbid if you had done something wrong or somebody got into you and had access into your portfolio, the worst they could do is send the money to your checking account. Click the link below to get started today. It's right at the top of every video you'll find, and start getting the peace of mind that you deserve. All right, now we start right here. Now, this is important because we know we've talked about this, but the United States US dollar as the global reserve currency is in its 81st year. And we know out of the last 5 national currencies to serve as a global reserve currency, the Netherlands and Portugal both had a life expectancy that died at 80 years as a global reserve currency. So we are at the 81st year. So we know that there is a real drive to get something done to shore up the US dollar dominance. And that's why I believe we will get that market infrastructure bill. But to speak to this even more is Christine Lagarde here, and take a listen to this clip.
Investors have begun to question whether the dollar would still warrant its status as the ultimate safe haven currency. I mean, the American dollar is one of the strongest weapons, frankly, that the administration has to use. Do you think that it is the rise of cryptocurrency that is most threatening to that, or why are you worried?
I see signs that the attraction of the dollar is slightly eroded. And future will tell whether there is more erosion of that. But when you look at the rise of cryptos, number one, when you look at the price of gold, gold is typically, in any situation, the ultimate destination for safe haven. Price of gold has increased by more than 50% since the beginning of the year. That's a clear sign that the trust in the reserve currency that the dollar has been, is, and will continue to be, is eroding a bit. In addition to that, we've seen capital flows outside of the US towards other destinations, including Europe. So, you know, for a currency to be really trusted, you need a few things. You need geopolitical credibility. You need the rule of law and strong institutions. And you need, I would call it, a military force that is strong enough.
So there you have it. That's Christine Lagarde, the European Central Bank president, talking about the problem in the geopolitical situation of the US dollar right now. This is why I say a grand economic global reordering is underway, and this is how they talk about it publicly. Don't believe it. It's still true. I'm telling you, this is the conversation, how they discuss it in an open forum. And I got that phrase, obviously, from the U.S. Treasury Secretary, who is why says and remarks often, this is why he took the role as U.S. Treasurer, because he believes that this is the moment for that to happen. So now, we also know while this moment is being discussed, Eleanor Tarrant reported that several top executives from crypto companies, including Coinbase, Ripple, Chainlink, and others, will participate in a roundtable with pro-crypto Senate Democrats this Wednesday behind closed doors. And this is all really based off the government shutdown, as well as the stalling of the market infrastructure bill, off the feckless Democrats who were absolutely useless during the 4 years that they had complete and total power. Ashish Birla announces, and this is absolutely breaking news right now, just moments ago, actually, I'm proud to share that we've launched Evernorth XRP, a first of its kind institutional vehicle built to accelerate XRP adoption. With over a decade of uptime and rapidly growing DeFi ecosystem, XRP is well positioned for adoption, and Evernorth is built to meet that moment. Well, let's get into this. Brad Garlinghouse shares this after the news was broke by Ashish Birla. And Ashish Birla also said that taking the role as CEO of Evernorth and on the board member there, he's stepping down and relieving his role as a board member of Ripple as well, obviously. So then Brad Garlinghouse remarks here, Ashish and team are building something special with Evernorth XRP. We are proud to partner with him and proud to join an incredible set of investors, including, listen to the list here, SBI Holdings, Pantera Capital, Kraken, GSR, and RippleWorks to support Evernorth as it participates in institutional lending, liquidity provisioning, and DeFi yield opportunities for XRP. This is remarkable, ladies and gentlemen. This is bigger than most people realize, because remember, it was just announced at the end of last week that Ripple also is going to be pursuing a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company, to create their own treasury separate from the XRP escrow. Ripple leads an effort to raise $1 billion to accumulate XRP in a new digital asset treasury through a SPAC. Right? So this is really incredible. Okay. This is pretty remarkable here. Dom says, congratulations to another Wharton alum, being Ashish Birla, on the launch of the first ever XRP treasury company. that's what had been announced today, ladies and gentlemen. The first ever Treasury company, which will be on NASDAQ. How about that? Because remember, that's what Ashish had said going further into this. If you go into this even further here, and matter of fact, I think I can go in here and find that for you very quickly here. And this is Everworth, newly formed corporation that will enable XRP adoption on an institutional scale. Today announced its public launch and the execution of business combination agreement with Armada Acquisition Corp. 2. NASDAQ AACI is the symbol there. A publicly traded special purpose acquisition company. Upon closing of the transaction, the combined company will operate under the Evernorth name and is expected to trade on NASDAQ under the ticker symbol XRPN, subject to the satisfaction of the listing requirements. There you have it. The transaction is expected to raise over $1 billion in gross proceeds, including $200 million from SBI Investments, RippleWorks, and the leading digital assets, fintech leaders, investors, including Pantera Capital and all the ones that we mentioned, with participation from co-founder Chris Larson, among others. Net proceeds will primarily fund open market purchases of XRP to build the world's leading institutional XRP treasury, with a portion allocated to working capital, general corporate purposes, and transaction expenses. This is the first of its kind. This is incredible. I hope this is hitting all of you the way it's hitting me. I can tell you that. Evernorth is designed to provide investors with simple, liquid, and transparent exposure to XRP through publicly listed vehicle, unlike a massive passive ETF. Evernorth seeks to grow XRP per share over time by participating in institutional lending and provisioning, as we discussed, right? So this is just massive. I have to say, I am so excited about this. I think Dom says it best here, the launch of the first ever XRP treasury company. So Evernorth is accumulating XRP and Ripple's creating a SPAC to accumulate XRP. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Shane Ellis theory in motion, which is sucking up all the XRP off the market right before your eyes. I believe you're seeing this all be announced in real time. And then we have to factor in the recent acquisition of Ripple of G Treasury that just gave it direct access to SWIFT certified infrastructure, a massive leap towards full global banking integration, which make a great demand for why you would want an XRP treasury now, wouldn't it? Especially when you understand that they're already handling 12.5 trillion in volume for 13,000 connected banks. It also makes sense because, according to Brad Garlinghouse a few days ago, he's excited because this is breaking into a $120 trillion corporate treasury payments market with the 1 billion acquisition of G Treasury. I'd say Brad got it on a blue light special. You crack it in, you spend 1 billion to gain access into a $120 trillion corporate treasury market. Yeah, that's a good play, Brad. Yeah, that's shout out to Brad. The past few years have reminded this industry why payments, first and foremost, is the primary use case for crypto and blockchain. Payments are where Ripple first started for exactly these reasons. The infrastructure is complex, siloed, and inefficient, but as we know, perfectly positioned to benefit from decentralized financial technologies. Astounding amounts of cash are trapped in outdated payment systems, creating friction, unnecessary cost, and barriers to entering new markets. G Treasury has been serving some of the most well-known brands for decades, and now together with Ripple, we'll be able to help CFOs manage all their assets, including stable coins, tokenized deposits, etc., at scale around the world, as well as put the idle capital to work with repo markets via Hidden Road. Now, let's check this out. And according to Grok 3, the repo market for the United States that the Fed serves is approximately 12 trillion outstanding, right? So you see that there's just this tapping into these massive, massive traditional financial areas where they are going to be able to access real USD, XRP at scale. This is just quite remarkable to me. Now let's go on to this part. Remember, it was September 30th, the biggest upgrade to the U.S. Treasury. Shout out to Echo to Truth. This is the day that they were supposed to start modernizing payments to and from America's bank accounts to the U.S. Treasury. And then the next day, the U.S. government shut down. and we're still shut down, which is why I continue to ask the question, when the United States government comes back online, will it be on blockchain? Will it be on the XRP ledger? Yeah. And why do I ask that? I ask it because of a gratis vendor.
I tell them what a gratis vendor is.
Yeah.
Because I was not going to go into the government. I was doing transition.
What is a gratis vendor?
A gratis vendor is an approved vendor for the United States of America that gives product to the government, doesn't sell it.
Okay.
So therefore, I don't have to go through the whole process of becoming a proper vendor because you're giving it to us. And then if you give it to Article 2, which is the president's stuff, then the president can accept it, right? Because it's give.
Sorry, Howard, what's an example of this? Like just to make
I write some software.
You write some software.
I write some software for the Commerce Department to do a better job of XYZ. You just give it to me. And then I do QA on it, and I can take it. If you sell it to me for $1, we go into government hell.
Right, the whole rigmarole.
Right, but if you give it to me, right, and then I set up, so I said, I'm calling it Doge. And I registered the name Doge.
You said that.
There you have it right there. So I'm asking the question, was the XRP ledger a private copy or version of that gifted to the president and the U.S. government for adoption? The same way that the Interledger Protocol was gifted to the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium that oversees the standards and principles of the internet we use today. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. To me, look, we don't know the answer, but I mean, the United States government has to run on something. I just reported in the first video that half the internet went down. The need for the internet of value and decentralized protocols is higher than ever. The demand is higher than ever. We don't have a choice. We need to make the shift. Now listen to this. Listen to this.
This is David Sachs, our crypto and AI czar, and he's talking about the Treasury, Mr. Besant, maybe becoming an asset manager. Take a look.
We don't know exactly what digital assets the federal government has. I've seen reports that it might have, for example, 50,000 ETH, which is Ethereum. Figure out exactly what the assets are. We're going to move them into the digital stockpile. The Secretary of the Treasury will figure out how to maximize the values of these holdings. If the Secretary of the Treasury decides that's in the long-term interest of the U.S. to rebalance the portfolio or change the portfolio, the Secretary has the discretion to do that.
So maybe the decision with Ethereum is, hey, this thing's waning. We just put it into Bitcoin because we know that's the more solid one. Yeah, that's what I'm reading into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's largely fair. Excellent. Unfortunately, we have a Secretary of the Treasury who is an extremely successful former hedge fund manager.
He has to make those decisions, and that's going to be, part of how he's evaluated by the president. So hopefully he's going to be sharp about that.
Right. If some other digital asset could prove that it's as decentralized and as secure and as widely accepted as a store of value as Bitcoin, then maybe it could be elevated in the same way that Bitcoin has. I mean, I'm laying out the criteria for you.
So,
all right. So before we get into any of the responses there, what do we understand? If XRP is decentralized in the fact that there's we know it's decentralized, but then it's in demand by Treasury, SWIFT, and everyone else mentioned, SBI, and all the other players we know that into this game. What do you think that'll speak to? What do you think the response will be to that? Let's listen to the rest of this.
Well, it's interesting that Sachs made that statement there, because if he truly believed that it was a Bitcoin-only world, we probably wouldn't have seen that statement. He clearly is leaving an open door. You've got Scott Bessent now that potentially has the wherewithal to be able to manage that stockpile and possibly go after something else besides Bitcoin, of just, especially when you look at the stockpile side of things. So my question to you would be, which is the safer asset? Would you go with a Bitcoin, or would you go with something like the lead asset in the stockpile being XRP?
I think that the thing I would read into that, I always like to think about what the facts say, which is what the market thinks. So I think that what's interesting about that clip is what the market thinks is it's certainly Bitcoin only, right? That's what the market thinks. And whether I think it should be Bitcoin or XRP or ETH is actually irrelevant. I'm not the Secretary of the Treasury. But the important thing that statement calls out is that the probability of these other assets having a space is not zero. And so that's the kind of delta that I look for as an investor, where the market thinks one thing and reality says something else. That's often the land where opportunity lies.
There you have it. And we have to ask the question that if we're watching these corporate treasuries be created here, how long before we see the U.S. digital asset stockpile, right? I mean, that's where we're at in this thing. You guys know I asked about this whole thing about controlling it like oil.
Floating a lot of ideas, Chris, about how to acquire some of these digital assets. Are you hearing anything about the different suggestions on that? And there's obviously, I've talked about this. I know other people have floated the idea. Is it out of the realm of possibility to consider that there would be a new bond issuance of digital assets in the future? Not next Tuesday, but in the future.
Oh, I think it's more than a possibility. Yeah. I think you're going to see it at multiple levels. I think you're going to see it at the corporate level. I think you'll see it at municipal levels.
And we just saw it at the corporate level.
You'll see it at the national level. And I also think that one of the things that really bothered this president about the private administration, you know, government sees crypto routinely as part of law enforcement. In fact, they're not even able to currently quantify all the crypto that is held by government, because some of it is at the state and municipal level from routine, police stops. And the prior administration would at least, what was at the federal level, they would sell off routinely. And it annoys this president they did, though, because that they do that, because had they held on to it, we might be able to pay down some of the national debt. So he's committed to holding on to the seized crypto, and that's something that doesn't need congressional authorization. They can just do that as a routine matter, and it's across the board in terms of different crypto. Beyond that, they're also thinking about how do we create something that's more like a reserve. The difference between a stockpile you just collect. A reserve is something that you actually actively utilize. So our strategic petroleum reserve is something that is not just used. You may think it's only used if we have a shortage of oil, we release some oil. No, it's actually used strategically and for monetary policy purposes, because the dollar is tied to the global price of oil. If our economic adversaries, like OPEC, decide to reduce production to drive up the price, we can sell from the reserve to counter that and reduce the price, and therefore control the exchange rate for dollars. So we use the strategic reserve. Well, when you've got the BRICS countries talking about creating a rival currency to the dollar and perhaps pegging it to physical commodities like gold or digital commodities, then it makes sense for us to actually reserve that to do the same thing we do with strategic petroleum. So that's very much, again, an earlier panel talked about these coming rivals to the dollar. There's no question that there is desire amongst many countries, the BRICS countries and others, to come up with a rival, but that is why the United States is stockpiling gold. That is why the United States is now stockpiling crypto, because they're aware of those threats and they are committed to preserving the dollar. Now, we've got to get Congress on that same track. The White House is doing their job to cut spending. We've got to get Congress to do it. And if any indication, the recent debates over the budget bill and the tax bill are not encouraging about Congress's ability to live off the credit card.
And what's interesting is when you talk about the oil comparison here, in the creation of this digital asset stockpile, they can sell the assets out of there. And I think some people have mistakenly looked at that as a deficiency to that. But what I saw is that is just like oil. They can sell oil. So if they acquire these digital assets and over time they can sell them, they could price control these assets in question just as they do oil.
And countries have been doing this since the dawn of time.
Right.
And now corporates are doing it with digital assets just like XRP. How long before we see the Shane Ellis theory really kick in high gear? At some point, supply shock will become a catalyst for the assets themselves. And could that bring on another moment like 2017, 2018, when we witnessed an 11,500% plus jump in the price of XRP? I don't know the answer, but I like the way things are shaking up. And I like that we're all here for it together, not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.